know what's funny, Bob? When it comes to a hazmat response, speed and accuracy, absolutely everything.
Speed and power.
Well, speed and power is a Clarkson Farm thing, but speed and accuracy, well, that's a 908 thing.
Yeah, you guys know these guys as the little black box, and now they have the little red box as well.
Yeah, hazmat teams around the world are trusting 908 devices, and there's a reason for that. Their handheld MX908 and the Explorer are changing the game.
Right. The 908 is one of the very few devices out there that can identify Novichoks.
You got it. But not only can they identify Novichoks, they can identify a whole range of chemical warfare agents, pharmaceutical-based agents, drugs, and explosives. And the key to all of that is they're doing it at trace levels.
Right. That is awesome because the Explorer can identify and quantify over 5,000 gases and vapors in seconds, and that is changing the game.
Yeah, we're not lying when we're saying that hazmat teams around the world are trusting 908 devices. You guys can check them out, 908devices.com, and upgrade your metering toolbox.
Yes.
Hey.
We are back with a couple of things. Industrial Strength Hazmat is coming out on YouTube, and we're trying that out too. They're on YouTube. Look for Industrial Strength Hazmat.
Okay.
Industrial Strength. I had to look that. I should have looked that up before, but whatever. And
we've got Jake's podcast, the Hazard Class podcast. That's coming out. We also have something that has been in the works. You've been working on it for a while, and it's really started to take off in traction, and that's the news.
Oh, yeah. All right. So if you don't know what we're talking about, tell your friends. We popped, you might have heard it previously on this channel. It has moved over to its own channel. So look for the Hazmat Guys, or I think the newsletter podcast is what it's called. I probably should have looked that up too, but I didn't. But you'll see it under our umbrella, or go to the website and you can find it there. But it's a short snippet of the news, what's happening, 3-4 articles just to keep you plugged in on a weekly basis, read to you by Timmy, our staff podcaster.
For premium members, guys, make sure you're joining us. We are starting to approach the middle of February, so in a couple more weeks, we've got our happy hour, and if you join the happy hour, you have a chance to win a scholarship to the Southernmost Hazmat Conference. That is going to be the fourth Thursday of every single month. Check out the store, the Hazmat Guys, and the Hazmat Guys AF. For the swag items, those two brands, we sell them, and pick up a copy of the Nerds 2 book. They are absolutely selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, it is coloring book in the back of it for you, the people that eat crayons. So you can see us at the Central Virginia EMS Expo in March, Wisconsin WAMR in March, Oklahoma in March, New England in March, and then we get into Michigan and OMRA, and we'll keep you guys up to date as those things are. They're adding on, and I think we're up to 16 conferences this year. Good times. But today's topic, AFG.
We're talking AFV.
AF. Oh,
AFV.
AFG. What is AFG? AFG is a car, isn't it?
I think that's the grant that we've been right.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking.
AFG.
Yes.
That's why AFG is in my head as well. Because every time I go to type out AFV, it comes out AFG, and I just realized why. Because we've been dealing with this Assistance for Firefighters grant for the past 3 months, and we've got a lot of departments that are taking the opportunity to get funding for training and having us come and train them. So we're excited about that. But today. Yes, we are talking about AFVs, alternative fueled vehicles. And we're going to dive into some of the firefighting skills and recognition and the safety response to coming into these alternative fueled vehicles, because they're out. They're absolutely out. We have case studies for incidents that have happened. They drive around. You may not recognize them just driving around, but they are there, and they are completely different response than a regular gas and diesel.
Yeah, If you haven't seen it, you haven't been picking your head up, because they are, like Mike said, everywhere. The CNG, the compressed natural gas, the LNG, the liquid natural gas, and now the hydrogen fuel cell, which I didn't even think was a thing, but there's recently, right around my house, there's a hydrogen filling station now. So these things pose these unique risks in emergency situations. So you can't just treat them like normal. You know, you got to. It's not just a gasoline leak or diesel spill. It's going to be different.
Yeah, the hydrogen itself, right? There's two types of hydrogen out there. There is the regular diesel engine that runs off hydrogen, and then there's the hydrogen fuel cell, which is kind of like a combination between the hybrid high power battery and the engine. So there's multiple hazards that go along with that, and this identification, when we pull up on scene, can turn a fire and accident into a disaster. So we're going to cover some really, really basic recognition, some basic response strategies, and the dangers of common mistakes.
Right. Now, we really haven't tipped our cards, but we're gonna kind of come out of the closet with this one now. Is that we've partnered with Tim Ferretti, and if you don't know who Tim Ferretti is, he is there is no other people out there that are doing CNG or anything like that to Tim's level. Everybody else is not doing it. So Tim is from Ferretti Salvage and Recycling, and you're like, wait a second, the salvage and recycling? Yeah. Like he
not
is
a firefighter.
the guy. Yeah. So we are partnering with him, and you know, he's an expert in the in the industry right now, and he's answering a lot of these questions that have to do with how to respond to these AFGVs. That information that we're talking about today is part of the larger operations class that we're going to have on responding to these alternate fuel vehicles. Stay tuned, because it will be game-changing in the industry.
They're great classes. And now Tim has an advanced technician course when it comes to dealing with CNG and LNG specifically. Our operations course was derived from his more advanced course. And if you're going to be taking his technician course, you can go to avncon.com and the Hazmat guys, because you're going to need this operations course paired with a prerequisite course in order to take Mr. Ferretti's class.
Right. So let's get into some recognition of alternate fuel vehicles before firefighters can actually react correctly. Right? Because you got to have a plan. You got to kind of recognize the container. You need to identify what you're dealing with. And a burning EV, a compressed natural gas truck, or even a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle will all require completely different response tactics.
Yeah. One of the easiest ways to identify an AVF is by its labeling. CNG, LNG, they're required by law to display a blue diamond decal on the front and the sides of the vehicle. Hydrogen fuel vehicles have a similar markings, and electronic vehicles manufactured often place electric or fuel cells. They're going to put a badge or a label on the rear or the side panel.
I usually see that electric or the E thing like in a blue. I wonder if there's something to
I don't know if the EV is required by law, or if
I
that's
think it's just a
manufacturer.
branding thing.
Oh, probably.
Whatever. I'll have to come back to that. But like all things hazmat, we have to remember that these are tiny little stickers, and there are no rules to say that the sticker can't be 10 years old and faded or unrecognizable. And you know what's so funny? I was on Amazon the other day, and you can buy, you know, like the HOV stickers, like that tell you can go into the speed lane. You can just buy them on Amazon. So if there's an incentive to get AFV, AFV, like some type of credit, I'm going to bet you're going to be able to buy these things and get a head fake from people. So we follow some guidance that would, when we approach a vehicle that has this potential to be something other than what it looks like, until proven otherwise beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Now, we need to be looking at a vehicle construction besides that label in there. CNGs and LNGs often have large cylindrical tanks mounted on top of the roofs. This is especially true in a truck or a bus.
Like a bus,
but they can also be behind the cab in like a commercial, what we would generally consider to be a commercial trucking, you know, with the tractor and the trailer. They can be behind the tractor or the cab part. Hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, they have tanks as well, but they are so heavily reinforced that they're generally hidden under the body of the vehicle.
Right. I've seen these things actually in trunks too. Like the trunk of like an Ultima or something like that.
Yeah, well, they'll actually do that. We talk about that in the class. They'll do that because all of these have retro kits. So you can take a standard car and retrofit it. And so now what you would normally think of as something coming from the manufacturer, the tank is no longer in the place it would be if it were made from scratch. Hydrogen.
So let's say you're approaching a fire and you see either the roof-mounted racks, the high-pressure fuel lines, or the decals, right? You're going to need to stop and rethink your plan because things are not the way it seems. Like your tactics are not going to work exactly the way we've always done it. You have to change your mode. Stay up to date.
Yeah. So that brings us to how do we do an initial size up and scene safety, right? Because as a firefighter, as an operations level guy, that's your primary concern when you arrive on scene. We want to follow that API process. And now once we recognize that we're dealing with an AFV, the next step is that proper size up. These incidents require a slightly different approach than we would for gasoline or diesel. So keep that in mind.
Okay, first priority, and we're pretty good at this, secure the scene. If you suspect an AFV is involved, establish an exclusion zone of 100 feet. Okay. Please don't think this is going to be the movies where there's going to be a mushroom cloud going off if there's hydrogen. It's not like that. But they are energetic. They're pressurized, right? In some way. So if a tank is compromised, extend that distance to 330 feet or more, which you might remember from the ERG. Shrapnel from these exploding CNG cylinders has been known to travel nearly a mile.
CNG, LNG with hydrogen. We can consider them to be explosive potentials. And a great rule of thumb in the explosive world is if you can see it, it can see you. Not only do you want to make your standoff distances enough where you're where the ERG and the different guides tell you to be, but you want to make sure that you're in a position where you can never actually view the device.
Hey, Mike, take a look around and tell me how many lithium-ion batteries you have around you right now.
Normally it's 5, but I'm working on our battery class, so right now it's about 19.
The batteries at Mike's house is apparently everywhere, and
everywhere.
Every department in the nation is starting to deal with these battery things on a regular basis.
Yeah, but we are excited to be telling you about a new product that has been proven to limit and control battery fire propagation. It's a new product from a brand called DiGio, and DiGio is chock full of hazmat experts who know that there's a better way for first responders to handle, store, ship any of the at-risk lithium-ion batteries.
Right, and this product will solve your lithium-ion battery problems. It's lightweight, it works across all battery types, and we can say that it actually lives up to the hype because we've tested it ourselves.
Yeah, it's called ObexionFR, and it's part of a 2-part system that is scientifically designed with kind of these little granulars, along with a UN-certified pail or a drum. Most importantly, ObexionFR is proven to reduce the toxic IDLH gases that are emitted when a battery kicks off, which is really important in keeping your team safe.
So go check them out, ObexionFR.com. That's OBEXIONFR.com. And you know what else I hate?
Running out of gas on the way to the airport that you're already late to for a class and having to call one of the guys from the firehouse who live in the area to come get you gas.
I would hate that.
Yeah.
I would hate that. That
happened to me last Friday.
I would hate that. You know what else I hate? I hate my face burning off.
Why the hell would your face burn off? What happened?
Well, from radiation, or actually not knowing that radiation is being present.
Oh, that's a really good point. Luckily, we've been playing with some new meters from Mirion, and I got to tell you, using them in the classroom and using them in the field, they are top shelf devices.
I'm going to bet a bunch of you out there don't even know who Mirion is, and neither did we until we started talking to them. And now, wow, is much more than meets the eye with these guys.
Yeah, like $1 billion company, and I had no idea the extent of their tentacles into the nuclear, medical, and safety, as well as the defense sectors.
Right. For first responders, they got some really cool tech like the AccuRad, the Spear Ace, the Spear View. This helps detect and monitor radiation quickly and accurately so we can make some smart decisions on the fly.
Check them out, Mirion.com. That's Mirion.com.
I like that. That is a good takeaway. Don't watch it explode. That's good.
Don't
I like
watch
that.
it. If you can see it, it can see you. I always love that.
Or minimize the amount of time that the device can see you on a scene, right? Try to minimize that because you're going to have to eyeball the thing. Everybody knows that. But if you're moving from like one spot to another, make sure that each one of those spots is behind something, like the fat guy. Don't stop and talk to somebody in the line of sight.
You're specifically assigned to the chief so he can walk around and you're just going to stand between him and the device at all times. If you don't have a fat firefighter, you can always take a fat civilian. Yes. Always approach at a 45-degree angle to avoid the potential venting flames or high-pressure gas release. With CNG, venting jets can ignite multiple times, and hydrant flames are often invisible.
Right, those thermal imaging cameras are a good thing. And even CNG, LNG, though technically not an invisible flame, have the potential to be difficult to see in the right lighting conditions. So we're going to want to approach any possible CNG or LNG with that thermal imaging camera as well, because again, if you think about this, right, if you have a venting a CNG, LNG, right, there's going to be a jet of gas coming out that may be on fire, right? We'll say that. But that fire might be a distance away because the UEL hasn't been attained. You know, so you might be like, oh, I don't see anything coming out of the tank. It might be 3 or 4 feet away because of the pressure to where it mixed properly.
Yeah, and then you're standing right there when it ignites, and hydrogen has an incredible amount of radiant heat that it gives off. So you don't even have to be in the fire to be badly burnt by a flash. You could just be around the fire. So one of the things that we also want to kind of perk up in our senses is our sense of hearing. Right, we want to listen for unusual sounds. High-pitched hissing could indicate a venting tank, while a popping sound might signal the pressure buildup just before a failure. If you hear any of these, back off immediately. There is nothing you can do on this other than protect yourself, protect civilians, and evacuate.
Okay, let's get into fire response strategies. Right, when it comes to this suppression, firefighters need to know when to attack and when to let it burn. And the wrong tactics could, I don't want to say fatal because I don't want to be like fear mongering, but it could be the difference.
We're all going to die. With CNG and hydrogen fires, right? We want to cool the tanks, or we want to cool the, right? That's our initial thought process is cool the tanks, right? We remember this from Proby school. We remember this with propane tanks, cool the tanks. But in LNG and CNG, cooling the tanks can actually delay the pressure relief device, otherwise known as the PDR, and can prohibit its activation, which can cause the cylinder to overpressurize and explode. If the PDRs are venting, don't spray water on the cylinder, let them do their job. And I'm going to even say, if they're not venting yet, don't put water on them because you don't want to inhibit them from doing their job. So that kind of eliminates water as something that we're using it at one of these CNG, LNG issues.
That actually kind of goes against what we're taught in Proby school, like throw water on everything. You know?
Yeah, right? Like, I think the only thing they told us not to throw water on was high tension wires. And even that now, they're like, well, as long as it's broken fog line, you can play around a little bit.
So LNG fires are a little different because the tanks are cryogenics, right? They're liquefied and they're double-walled, heavily insulated. And water cooling can actually prevent a BLEVE, which is the boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion. But if you don't have enough water to sustain it, it's better to evacuate.
Yeah. And that water's kind of doing like a double-edged thing, right? Because the water itself can warm up the LNG, but we're using the water to absorb the heat from the fire, so the fire doesn't more rapidly heat it up. It's a very weird balance that you have to sit and try to strike. We also need to watch for gas clouds. LNG spills are going to vaporize. Now, LNG, liquefied natural gas. Why is it liquefied? It's liquefied because it's cold. Remember that. Liquefied spills will vaporize, and a low-hanging cloud can ignite from static electricity. Hydrogen, on the other hand, releases really, really quick. It's nearly invisible when it burns, and a thermal imaging camera is going to be the only way to see it.
But, okay, if you're the new technician sitting at home listening to this, us say that, I thought methane was lighter than air. Why would it be a low-hanging gas? That is 100% correct. That's the end of the show. No.
Yeah, done. All right. See you next week.
Methane is a major component of CNG and is lighter than air, but that's only when the temperature of the air and the temperature of the methane are the same. You see, when you have compressed gas or even liquefied gas, it's going to be, as the kids say, hella cold, right? And hella cold means it's more dense than the air that's around it, which means it's going to go down until it warms up to match ambient, and then it will do its normal float away thing. Also, keep in mind that methane isn't the only component in CNG, right? We also have butane, propane, that, I just a quick side note. I was looking at the butane you can get for like a camping stove. Mm-hmm. It's like a little tin you would get, and you're like,
the stuff you used to hike with.
The hiking stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't you have like a straight up, propane or butane gas? It's because sometimes you hike and it's so cold that it doesn't have enough vapor pressure to actually come out. And so what they do is they start doping the propane with other gases to depress the freezing point to get more vaporization.
Well, that would make sense, right? Because butane is a lighter gas.
Right.
Is it? No.
Butane, they put propane into it to depress the gas. Anyway,
it changes all the stuff. The chemical physical properties match what the needs and desires are.
Yes. So you have butane in this stuff, propane in the mixture. So now there may not be enough propane in the CNG to cause a massive pulling, and an explosion like we would like on a leaking propane tank.
But it does give us some clarification as to why we can get 1, 2, 3, even 4 parts or percentages of the LEL in situations where we expect natural gas.
Right. If you can't identify immediately the fire source or the fuel type, focusing on protecting on the exposures, right? Keeping your people safe. These fires don't behave like traditional fuel fires, and they're taking a step is probably a good option.
Not every I said AVG, not every alternative fuel vehicle, AFV, involves a fire. Gas leaks from CNGs and hydrogen tanks are just as dangerous.
Right. Now, if you suspect a gas leak, eliminate the ignition sources immediately. That means no road flares, no cutting tools, no electric vehicle stabilization methods that could possibly create a spark.
Now, we kind of talk about in class, right? Quite often in tech school, we're like uphill, upwind. Well, if your product goes up, do you really want to be uphill and upwind? Just some food for thought, guys. But when we're on scene, we need to be using combustible gas detectors and multi-gas meters to assess the situation. Hydrant leaks rise. CNGs tend to disperse quickly outdoors, but they can accumulate in confined spaces or overhead spaces like bridges or inside a warehouse. LNG, on the other hand, right, is going to stay low, and it's going to give us a second hazard of freezing. Now, not saying it's going to like freeze your leg off, but you can have liquid pooling, and the vapors themselves are cold enough to create ice from anything that might be on the ground.
Right. And remember, it's going to be low until it reaches that ambient, just to clarify one more time. So if a tank is leaking but not on fire, do not attempt to move the vehicle. Shutting off the manual fuel valve is an option, but only if it can be done safely. Otherwise, just evacuate and wait for specialized hazmat teams, such as the people listening to this.
A big mistake is assuming that an AVF is safe once the fire is out, right? Residual fuel in the system can still leak, and pressure vessels can fail long after the initial incident. So towing and salvage, really, those teams need to be aware of the type of fuel that is being moved, and they need to be able to ensure that they're specialized.
All right, let's wrap this up with a couple of key takeaways for the firefighters. if you're responding to one of these alternate fuel vehicles, a couple of things. Identify the vehicle, right? We're looking for decals. We're looking for tank location. We're looking for high pressure fuel lines, anything that's visual. Call it out on the radio. Make sure everybody knows about it. Get your safe zone at least 100 feet to start. And if it is established that it's compromised, you can expand it up to 330 feet or whatever you think is safe.
Use the right suppression tactics, which your instinct is going to tell you differently. Do not cool the venting CNG or hydrogen tanks and avoid spraying water on LNG. We want to monitor really, really carefully. We want to use multi-gas detectors and eliminate those sources of ignition.
And treat all these cars or vehicles, whatever, as a hazard even after the fire is out. Like towing and storage procedures, you got to be following them carefully to prevent secondary incidents. And these vehicles are becoming much more common, and emergency responders need to be prepared. Right, your training, your awareness are the best tools for keeping firefighters safe. And check out the class at the Hazmat Guys, and his class, Tim Ferretti's class, is truly amazing hands-on class. I know there are other organizations out there teaching LNG and CNG, and they pretty much developed a class after sitting through his class. Oh.
Yeah, and he's actually constantly complaining. This hurts him a little bit. He's constantly complaining how the information that these organizations are teaching are gonna, and in his words, they're gonna get somebody killed, because they just didn't take the time to learn the nuances enough before they went out and they taught the information and the techniques that he teaches. So please, guys, be very, very careful taking a CNG or LNG from anybody other than Timothy Ferretti. Ready to train differently? Head to thehazmatguys.com to book your customized training. Pick up a copy of the Nerd Book Volume 2. Browse our extensive swag. Get your department added to the grant funding list. Stay up to date on all things Hazmat Guys. Don't wait. Secure your team spot today.